So hey there everyone, LoneWolf360 here back again for another video. So I know it's kind of odd that I'm working on a bit of a filler video just as I started working on the Atlas vid, which is a rather large project. But as I said in my previous uploads or my previous community posts, I'm gonna try to put out some smaller projects in between some of the bigger stuff in order to fill the gap. And not only that, but I really like this show, so I just wanted an excuse to talk about it again. So with all that being said, my adventures with Superman, I'm not gonna lie, I really felt like this show had a positive impact on me because it really just changed my entire perception on Superman as a character, from making me think that he was lame and then making me think that he was actually a pretty cool character. And I really liked the approach which they took with season 1 and when it came to how they portrayed Superman as a character, by not just focusing on the superhero aspect of the show, but by mainly focusing on Clark, his friends, and how the relationship that he has with friends helps him grow as a person and helps him grow as a hero. I like seeing his struggles. I like seeing him deal with the isolation of knowing that he wants to be open with people, but at the same time has the fear of exposing himself as an alien. And I like the approach which they had when it came to him and his backstory, and how despite him wanting to learn about his past, he literally couldn't even speak his own language, which honestly was a pretty interesting angle. And with all that being said, my biggest gripe with season 1 by far probably was a little bit of the pacing, and that's mainly due to how TV shows nowadays are limited to 10 episodes as opposed to having longer seasons. And also when it came to things like the villains kind of being one note, with the exception of a select few only being memorable because of some standout moments. But with all that being said, I found season 1 to be pretty decent, all things considered. So imagine my surprise when it came to season 2 being a hell of a lot better when it came to its presentation. In which I just have to say that people behind this show know how to fucking cook. Because while I won't say that this show is perfect or anything, I still have my issues with it every now and then. At the same time, for what this show does well, it does really fucking well. And the way about how this season really builds upon what was established in season 1 is just so fucking great. Especially when it comes into diving into Clark's psyche. Because season 1 established a few things, like Clark feeling like he was an outsider and didn't belong, for two reasons. One of them being the fact that he's an alien and doesn't even know a thing about his own culture, so bad to the point to where he can't even speak his own native tongue. And for another thing being the fact that he was afraid about coming out to people, especially his friends. Because how the hell are you supposed to know if people are willing to accept you for who the way you are, if people are just gonna be afraid of things which they don't understand? And while sure, it was a really important thing for him to come out to his friends and tell them the truth in season 1, in season 2 it's still something which needs to be addressed. Like, sure, he's chill with his friends knowing his secret, but at the same time, for the larger world, it's an issue. Yet at the same time, Clark gains some optimism knowing two things. For one thing, he gets to bond a bit with his space dad, Zor-El, in the first episode of the season, which is pretty cool. And for another thing, he also finds out about his cousin very much being alive, so he knows that he's not the only one out there. Yet at the same time, for a good majority of the season, we focus on Clark and his isolation, dealing with this as things are slowly ramping up. And this also applies to the villains as well. Now, while before I found them to be pretty boring and one-dimensional, and while it still is a bit of an issue regarding Task Force X specifically, at the same time, the way about how Amanda Waller and most importantly Lex Luthor have been used in this season is just so fucking great, because they are literally what Superman or Clark specifically have feared the most when it comes to people not being able to accept him for the way he is, and misconstruing every single event in their favor in order to go turn the public against Superman. So much to the point to where the first major thing that Lex does is invite Jimmy to a speech and say some of the wildest shit, where he says something along the lines of, "Oh yeah, Earth is for Earthlings only." Like, okay, buddy, I get that you got fired from your job and all. Like, I'd be a bit pissed too if that was the case. But at the same time, chill with that xenophobic ass statement, okay, my guy? Just chill. But you're gonna be very surprised in a few years when humanity's dealing with aliens and everything, especially in DC's universe. But outside of that, there's Brainiac, in which I just have to say, this guy just fucking takes the cake when it comes to this show, when it comes to him just being the best villain in this show today. I'm not really sure how future villains are going to overtake him, but wow, this guy, when it comes to him fucking around with Clark and just messing that boy up, ooh, this guy, he knows what's Good. So, the wildest thing about Brainiac so far is the fact that despite him only being in the show for like 2 episodes in total, is the fact that he leaves one hell of an impact. And the wildest thing about that is that despite him only having 2 episodes, before the guy even gets properly introduced in person, you could still feel his influence in season 1, or just in the episode before that. Because in that very episode where Kara finally gets to go on Earth and try and look around for Clark, is in the moment that we get to see her hang out with Jimmy, in which I have to say their relationship is honestly pretty cute. It's the moment that you get the feeling that honestly Kara ain't all that much of a bad person. But at the same time, the moment that his influence starts to manipulate Kara, the moment that things don't go the way that she expected, is the moment that shit goes from 0 to 100. And it's only reinforced in the next episode when it really dives into how bad Kara's situation has really been as opposed to her perspective alone, in which you really get to see the full scale of how fucked up Brainiac is just as an individual. Because in a way, it almost feels like he's Am from I Have No Mouth But I Must Scream, but just recontextualized in a more fucked up way. Rather it be the mechanical hell which some of his victims have been put in, where their souls are just fucking trapped indefinitely in an army of machines, or the fact that he could just turn Kara's brain off at the snap of a finger and have her pre-programmed to just do whatever he wants. It is so fucking wild how this guy is so much of a menace, and I cannot wait to see about how he gets his ass beat at the end of the season, or at least I hope that's how it turns out, because if we have a cliffhanger at the end of this season, I might start tweaking. But that's all I have to say. And, I think I've said everything I have to say about this show. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I really hope this show doesn't end with a cliffhanger. And, well, I'll see you all on my next upload. Later, folks.